Hey everybody, hey fam, welcome back to Love Restored. I am your host, Marshaun Olaniyan, and you are listening to KCCR, the Brownstone. Whether you're watching me, whether you're listening to me, welcome, welcome, welcome. So for the next 30 minutes, I want to tell you who I am and what we're actually doing here this evening. So we are on chapter 8 of this book here, which is Reignite Your Relationship by 7X. Chapter 8 is all about discussing your relationship expectations. And before I jump into that, again, I want to tell you who I am and why you are here, why I started to, um, why I decided to start Love Restored. So again, I am Marshaun Olaniyan, your host of Love Restored. I decided to start Love Restored because Love Restored is all about restoring love for yourself first, and then allowing that love that you have restored for yourself to trickle down into all of your relationships, especially but not limited to your romantic relationship. Because here's the truth of the matter: if you're like me, if you look like me, then 9 times out of 10, you had a disconnected relationship when it comes to how to choose a mate, how to be a great mate, as well as how to be in a healthy romantic relationship leading into a marriage. See, I was part of that group, and I was at a loss as to why I never got the tips, tools, strategies in order to be a better woman, in order to be a better wife, in order to choose a better mate, right? So all of the things that I'm discussing here, I've actually went through them myself. And so I decided to say, hey, instead of continuing to go down that path and allowing other people to knock their doggone heads like you, why not do your own research, make yourself better? And now I am imparting the information, the data, the research, the just all of the information, all of the things to you now. So Love Restored is all about restoring the love that you once had previous to the world getting in your ear, getting into your head, getting into your heart, right? So, literally, that's for most of us, pretty much all of us, that was when we were children, when we were little bitty babies, when everybody was just so happy to see us do a thing like crawl, walk, smile, laugh, right? Even go to the bathroom and the potty, like before the world had any tainting on your life. Now, are you gonna 100% go back to that? Absolutely not, because life experiences does change us. However, comma, if you can get as close to that free spirit, that openness, that lovingness, right, then you can find love for yourself. You can start to hear your own voice, listen to your own thoughts versus all of the things that life as well as people have taught us. So that's who I am. I specifically help Black Christian women that are just sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like, I have a small group of Black women that I coach outside of Love Restored. And it's really all about restoring that love that they lost for themselves first, and then we work on the relationship. But if you don't have you together, then it's no reason for you to leave the relationship. It's also no reason for you to think that you should move on from the relationship or to have all of these demands, because you must get you together. You are the change that you seek. So if you seek change for yourself first and start to implement the things that you are learning, then guess what? Now those things can trickle down into all of the relationships in your life. Again, not limited to your romantic relationship. So again, you are listening to Love Restored on KCCR The Brownstone, and I am your host, Marshaun Olaniyan. So let's jump into chapter 8 of my book, Reignite Your Relationship by 7X. So again, the chapter that we're discussing this evening is discuss these relationship expectations. Now, we're not going to go heavily into the three that I mentioned, but we are going to talk about it, which is finance, religion, and children. But before we get started, as always, I'm going to read the quote that I chose for this chapter. So it says, "When you stop expecting people to be perfect, you can like them for who they are," by Donald Miller. Now, isn't that just the truth? Like, stop expecting people to be perfect, because none are perfect. The only man that walked this earth that was perfect was Jesus. So if you're not a believer, then this is not for you, right? But that is the only person that was perfect. All the rest of us were born into this sinning world. And so you don't have to worry about trying to sin. You have to worry about trying to not sin. So the only perfect person was Jesus. And so when we stop expecting people to be perfect and really see them for who they are, now we can decide intelligently if we want to like them or not. Like seriously, we have the choice to now make to like them or not. So why is it important to discuss relationship and the expectations within the relationships? Because many relationships lose their luster after a while. Like after the honeymoon stage is over and now the rose colored glasses have come off and now you're starting to see your partner the way that they truly are versus the way that you thought they were when you were first dating. This is when the luster leaves from the relationship. And then those untalked about expectations start to surface. The annoyances start to happen more and more and more, when in fact, a lot of these things could be alleviated or could be less of an irritation if we decide to use this, which is communicating your wants, needs, and desires to your partner. So there is no, oh, he's a mind reader. No, he's not. He's not a mind reader. You have to articulate the things that you want, articulate the things that you need, articulate the things that you desire. But first, you must have an idea of what those things are. So now, each of us assumes that the other person should just know what to do, that they should just know what to say, that they should just know how to influence our happiness. But that's not true, because here's the thing. Each of us have dated plenty of people, and some people have been married one, two, and even three times, maybe even more, right? But with that being said, because you had some form of happiness with somebody prior to the person that you're currently dating or currently married to, it doesn't mean the things that you did to make this current person happy, excuse me, it doesn't mean the things that you did to make the past person happy will actually make this current person happy. So now you really have to figure out what your person wants, what your person needs, what your person desires. And all of that comes through communication, discussions about your life, discussions about the expectations, and even those unexplained expectations that happen to just surface. You know what? Now it's time to have a discussion about said thing, because the more that you take the time and effort to do these things in the beginning, if this person, if your spouse really loves you and they want the best for you, if your partner really loves you and they want the best for you, they want to see you happy, they want to be your knight in shining armor, well, guess what? The things that you come to them with to say, hey, this is heavy on my heart, I need to discuss this with you, he will be willing to change said behavior, because not for himself, but for you. Over a period of time, because he's doing it for you, it will become his own. But really, in the beginning, he's doing it specifically for you so he can be your hero. So you can see, you know what? So you can see that he heard what you brought to the table. But you have to be able to articulate that. Because as I mentioned, no one is a mind reader. No one. We must be able to discuss these relationship expectations and everything. So we have to be able to communicate powerfully as well as succinctly and honestly. Another reason why we must discuss these relationship expectations is because having these conversations makes each of you in the relationship feel like your partner has a better understanding of you, of what is expected, of what is needed, and what you both are bringing to the table. So we must again be able to speak up and articulate the things that we want, need, and desire. Also, when we do this, we make one another feel special, we make them feel needed, and we also make them feel heard. So you cannot assume anything, because assuming only hurts the situation. Like when you assume that they should know how to treat you, when you assume that they should know how to, um, like what you like to do. Don't just assume because you mentioned it one time that this was a special occasion coming up and your birthday is really big. You have to be willing to say this, repeat this stuff, right? Just so they really take it in and really know that this is something that you want. So do not assume anything, because assuming only hurts the situation. And assuming has you creating all of these stories about why the thing that you were hoping was going to get done never got done. Why your spouse said what he said. Why he said he was going to do something and did not do the very thing that he promised to do. Not to say that that's right, but having a conversation about what was actually happening, because a lot of times we make our thing the most important thing, when in fact we don't put ourselves in our spouse's shoes to say, he could have had a bad day. My timing is off with trying to have this conversation. He could have got some news, whether it could have been a layoff, it could have been death on the side of the family, like a whole plethora of things could have happened. But because you are being selfish in the moment and you're making it all about you, now you're not even open to hearing what he has to say. You're just pissed off and mad. All because you're making up all of these stories about why he did not come through for you, for your special occasion. But again, when you're articulating how important this special occasion is to you, when emergencies do come up, he will be able to acknowledge the fact that, hey, my bad. I know that this situation was, I know that this event very, very, very important to you, and I want to honor that. However, an emergency has come up and we got to deal with that thing. We get it. Life happens. Life happens to all of us. But assuming that he didn't do a thing because you're in your feelings will keep your feelings hurt. And now you're down spiraling out of control with your story. And by the time you go to him and address said thing, now you blowing up. He's shut down because he's dealing with his own crap and he just don't have time to deal with the stuff that you're bringing to him in that moment. Because none of us know what the other person is actually going through. Okay, off my soapbox, right? Off my soapbox. So now, having the conversation and discussing your expectations, it really does explain the why behind the things that creates a sense of knowing, understanding, and it increases the chances of things going off without any glitches that happen to pop up here, there, and everywhere. Now, I want to read to you what happened to Keith and Kayla in the book, and this is on page 90 if you are following along. I want to read what actually happened with them, because this is what some of us have a tendency to do. And so let me know if you can see yourself in their story. So Keith and Kayla are working on expectations in their relationship. Keith just expected Kayla to know she should not use her credit card for every little thing that she purchases. Keith grew up in a household where you would use the credit card only when absolutely necessary, meaning only in emergency situations. Now, Kayla, on the other hand, grew up in a household where you spent the money when it was available. So, two different households, two different situations about how they deal with money. As a result, seeing the credit card statements one day sent Keith into a real frenzy. Kayla had no idea what he was so angry about. Like what you mad about, right? After all that, Keith explained the value of a dollar and how credit cards keep people in debt and how interest rates were designed to keep them continuously in debt. He also explained how using cash was better unless there was no other choice to make sure he or she purchases the necessities, not items for short-term gratification. Kayla listened intently as she had never heard this idea before. She explained to Keith that she would work on improving her spending habits, but he also would have to help her with the temptation of irresponsibility spending. As long as Keith and Kayla discussed the nuances they each have and the unwritten rules, those unwritten expectations I talked about, within the relationship, every issue can be resolved and broken down so that both parties understand the other's point of view. Now, Discuss things when your spouse speaks to you in a not so kind way, because it's going to happen, especially when things or misunderstandings occur. Let him or her know why your feelings are hurt and why they should not speak to you in that manner, which literally is a no brainer. But sometimes we need a reminder, right? Discuss how the children will be raised, discuss how many dates you'll take, and there's other things that I'm putting in here to discuss. Overall, you want to make this the relationship that fits best for you, which brings me to the next point, which is you don't want to set yourself up for failure by thinking about how somebody else sets up their relationship, which is where that old comparison comes into play. And it doesn't have to be a comparison to one of your siblings or one of your friends. It literally could be the comparison of your parents and their relationship and how you thought yours was going to be that way. But again, if you never uh, communicate what your expectations are, then your spouse has very little chance of meeting those unexpected expectations and or rules. And here's the thing, in our relationships, being in a romantic relationship is all about growth. Before we go further, family, you are watching KCCR, The Brownstone, or listening to it. And I am your host, Marshaun Olaniyan. You are watching Love Restore. I am excited that you decided to stay here this long, and we have a few more items to go before we wrap up this section today, this segment today. And again, if you have yet to download the apps on all of your smart devices to keep up with Brownstone Worldwide, then please go ahead and do that. Brownstone Worldwide, go ahead and check it out. I'm sorry, it's brownstoneworldwide.com. Check that out. Check out all of the personalities are on there. Check out the magazine. Like, we have some dope things on there that you don't want to miss out on. So now, if you want to pick up your copy of Reignite Your Relationship by 7X by your girl Marshaun Olaniyan, then go ahead and do that by going to bit.ly/reigniting relationships. Again, that's bit.ly/reigniting relationships, all lowercase letters. So now let's go ahead and jump back into your expectations and why we should be discussing them. When you practice owning your shortcomings, you not only show that you love yourself, you also show your partner that you care about not only him, but also about the relationship and how you want things to continue to blossom. You want things to continue to blossom. And one of the ways to do that, right, is owning your own shortcomings. Oh man, I didn't know that. Or I knew that and I messed up. That's my bad. I'm going to do better next time. And then actually do better next time. Because we have the tendency to bring in these uncommon areas of stress into our relationships. And literally, it is these discussions. It's not necessarily the expectations per se, but it's discussing the difficult conversations. So some of your expectations could be a part of a difficult conversation. But guess what, sis? You still got to have it. That's the only way your partner or spouse is going to know what you expect from them. Because if you remember what I said not so long ago, he wants to win with you. He wants to be your hero. He wants to see those beautiful pearly white teeth more often than not. So the only way to do that is to make sure that you have these difficult conversations, specifically when it comes to the expectations that you have in the marriage or in the relationship with him. Because as I mentioned earlier, the person who is not having the discussion, has a tendency to make up all of these stories on why things are not happening the way that you believe that they should be happening, why they're not occurring the way that you believe that they should be occurring, why you're being ignored, etc. Right? And then with making up the stories, with not having the difficult conversation, it continues to have long-term angst. There's some disengagement in there because of that. And then also we feel disappointed. So no reason to feel disappointed if you have the conversation, difficult or not. Difficult or not, got to learn to have these conversations, because resolving conflicts earlier versus later keeps the two of you connected. When we Prolong the difficult conversations. Have you noticed how slowly but surely there's a little bit of distance? Maybe you two sit on the couch and you're holding hands, and then all of a sudden, instead of you sitting on the couch where you both could sit side by side, now you decided to choose the armchair where it's just one person where they can sit there, right? So just it's just slowly but surely there's distance happening, and it's happening because you are holding on to and allowing the resentment to start to build up and take the place of just having a difficult conversation about why you feel the way that you feel and why things are popping up the way that they're popping up. If you want to get back connected, then you have to have these difficult conversations and or expectation conversations, because the expectation conversations doesn't have to be a difficult conversation, although it could be, right? So resolve the conflict as early as possible so you can feel like, okay, he heard me. I'm loved. I'm understood, right? We have to do it. We have to do it, sis. We have to do it. Now, I want to talk about the difference right now in being petty versus important, because we have a tendency to go down that road, unfortunately. We can be petty, right? We can be petty. So it is helpful to choose our battles wisely. Oh, if you're following along, I am on page 96 at the very bottom, last paragraph. It is helpful to choose battles wisely and to distinguish between petty issues and important ones. Petty, by definition, means not important and not worth giving attention to, complaining too much about things that are not important. In contrast, important, by definition, means of great significance or value, likely to have a profound effect on success, survival, or well being. For example, having a blowout over the cap not being put back on the toothpaste is a petty issue, while discussing whether or not you want to bring a child or children into this world and into your relationship is of more importance or significance, right? So this topic should be given a significant amount of time for discussion to ensure that both parties present their opinions. Notice how I did not say yell, scream, or bicker over anything. Many experts point out that bickering can lead to the demise of a relationship. It is like a chronic warfare that erodes the quality of a relationship. So you don't have to be petty. Choose your battles wisely, because everything that you're thinking about does not need to be discussed. It just doesn't. Think about the conversation that you want to have before you have it, and then go in there with the facts. Especially if you are my sister watching this, we have a tendency to talk in circles, and men just want to hear it straight to the point, especially when it's something important. You don't want your important stuff to get lost in all of the stuff that we're just talking in circles about. So if you're like me, then you like lists. So let's get into a list that is going to, some things that you can think about when it's time to have those difficult conversations, right? So I have 12 things. I'm gonna list them off very quickly. This is on page 98. If you have the book, again, if you do not have the book and you want to pick it up, go to bit.ly/reigniting relationships. Again, that is bit.ly/reigniting relationships. Okay, the list of things to think about to approach a difficult conversation. Number one, consider the expected outcome of the issue being addressed. Number two, be specific about what you want. Number three, acknowledge the difficulty of having this type of conversation. Number four, think about what you want to say and how you want to say it. Number five, have this conversation at a good time and place. Number six, give up the need to be right. Number seven, stay as positive as possible. Number eight, stay focused on the problem, not the person, not your spouse, on the problem. Number nine, actively listen to your spouse without interrupting. Number 10, take a time out if you must. Number 11, know that this conversation can have a part one, two, three, four, etc. Number 12, do not pressure your spouse to keep talking about the issue if he or she needs to take a break and come back to it later. These are all things that we can benefit from just by knowing what to think about before you have the conversation, but still have the conversation. It is a must. You can't get away from not having the conversation, because that's when we pigeonhole ourselves, and then we have all of this resentment pent up because we didn't take the time to say, I didn't like the way you talked to me. You know what? When we had our friends over and you made that joke about me, and you went down the rabbit hole with Sally Sue over there about me, I did not like the way that that felt. And especially because you're supposed to be my partner, I was hoping that you were going to put her in her place and not go down the road of agreeing with her. Even if you did agree with her, you could have came and talked to me afterwards, not in front of our peers, not in front of our friends, not in front of our family. Like, have the conversation in private with me. That's how I would like for you to handle the situation. You see, I didn't yell, scream, fuss, and fight, but I did talk about the facts. You and your homegirl went down the road making jokes about me. You didn't take up for me. This is how I would like for you to handle it in the future, right? Yes, that is going to take some practice. I've been doing this for a few years now, so it's I don't really have to think about it. I just know how to do it, right? But if and when you need to take the time to look at the list, and then, okay, I'm gonna do these two things this particular time, and then just build upon it. Just build upon it. We're not going to get all of these things right the first time around, because this is something that you're not used to doing. And it's okay. It's okay. You're going to mess up. Know that you're going to mess up and be okay with the mess up. Now, before I wrap it up, because I know that we have to wrap this all up, I want to say the big three that I have listed in the book is about the discussion of the expectations is finance, children, and religion. Now, these are listed in the book because these are the top three areas in which many people get a divorce. So if you have not had the conversation about your finances and what they look like, and what the credit card debt is, what the loan debt is, and all of the things, your spending habits, all of that stuff, you need to have a conversation about it, because money is a big thing. We know that money is not everything, but it definitely is something that we need in order to thrive. I don't want to say survive, right? Because we're getting out of the survival mode. We are in thriving mode. And so it's something that we need to, in order to thrive and do the things that we want to do here on this earth at this time. We need money. We need to know what the finances are looking at. And if your finances are not in order, it's time for you to start getting them in order. Like, it really is. Like, we got to man up, we got to woman up, and start to be better in all areas of our life, because we're restoring all of the things that we didn't know because nobody gave us the information. But now we have the opportunity to switch things around and do things different. So not only can you reap the benefits today, your child or children and their children can reap the benefits tomorrow by you passing down the correct information and the financial literacy that they need. The second thing is religion. Religion usually doesn't play a huge part in a relationship until children are involved. I see this time and time again, that the woman and man, they get together, and one is one religion, one is another. One practices heavier than the other. And then when the child or children come into play, this is when you have huge issues about religion. Because let's say it's a Christian and a Muslim. The Christian wants to take them to the church, the Muslim wants to take them to the mosque. I want them to do this class, I want them to do that thing, I want them to have this belief, I want them to wear this. No, they can't celebrate that. Yes, they can celebrate this. And it's just a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And people get divorced because of religion or lack thereof. So if you are a person that wants children with a mate that you have chosen or about to choose, and you are of different religion, I really want you to think about this one, because it doesn't really play a huge part in most people's relationship until the child or children comes into play. And if you don't have any children, you will know if you go down this road and you start to have children. It is really tough. Some people get through it, other people, most people don't. Let's just say it like that. The other thing is the children. It's specifically the children. Please have the conversation about wanting children. How many children do you want? Are you done with children? Like, because it's nothing more heartbreaking than getting into a relationship with the guy. You love him. You want to stay there. You to death do you part. Your heart longs for you to be a mom, and he does not want to be a father. Time and time again, this happens. And divorces happen. They absolutely do. It's another statistic that's kind of morbid, but it's true, which is a lot of divorces when it comes to children happen. Excuse me, yeah, happen as if the child dies unexpectedly. That happens with divorce. So I know you're not necessarily thinking about that. The biggest thing is, do you want a child or children, and are you compatible in that area together? So if you don't take nothing away from today, I need for you to go have those three discussions if you have yet to have them, because you don't want to end up in a situation, the very thing that you're thinking, I don't want to get divorced, I don't want to break up, only to do that very thing because you have yet to face the music and have the conversations that we really need to be having before saying, I do. I am so thankful that you decided to stay around with me this long. Thank you for these 30 minutes that you have given to me. Again, I am your host, Marshaun Olaniyan. You are watching Love Restored on KCCR The Brownstone. If you have yet to download the apps on all of your smart devices, then go ahead and do that. Check out brownstoneworldwide.com. Definitely check out the magazine. Like, there's just so many other things that are going